All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're looking at an operational mystery that plagues, well, almost every team-based environment out there. You know the drill. Whether we're building a massive skyscraper, rolling out a complex software update, or driving a global corporate initiative, there is this repeating, almost predictable pattern of failure that we absolutely need to talk about. It's a pretty nasty business, right? When deadlines slip, the immediate knee-jerk reaction is almost always to point the finger straight at the planner. The schedule turns red, panic sets in, and boom, everyone's looking for a scapegoat. But we really have to ask ourselves, are we actually blaming the right person, or are we just punishing the messenger? You've probably heard that famous Antoine de Saint-Exupéry quote, "A goal without a plan is just a wish." But seriously, what happens when that wish completely falls apart? In this explainer, we're going to break down why the very architect of the plan, the exact person holding the blueprint for success, somehow becomes the designated scapegoat when things go sideways. And more importantly, we'll see how shifting our perspective on this can literally save our projects. Okay, Section 1, the blame game. Let's look at exactly why the planner takes the hit. So here's the harsh reality. Planners do not create delays, they simply make them visible. Think about it. While project managers actually own the program and the ultimate delivery, planners are just the early warning radar system. They're the folks alerting everyone to the deviations. They measure the reality gap between what was promised and what is actually happening on the ground. Just think about what actually breaks a timeline. We're usually talking about unclear project requirements right out of the gate, midstream scope changes by stakeholders who suddenly change their minds, inadequately planned timelines based on, frankly, bad estimates, or just a total lack of communication leading to agonizingly slow sign-offs. Projects stall because of these structural failures and indecisions. Yet the messenger, our planner, is the one catching all the heat just for reporting the math. Crazy, right? Moving on to Section 2, the cost of indecision. We're uncovering the hidden root cause here. Look, if the planner isn't the root cause of the delay, where is the real culprit hiding? Usually it's sitting right in the executive suite. We call this clarity debt. It's this massive, invisible burden that piles up when decisions are left half-finished and the language is kept vague, which forces the team to carry the heavy weight of unfinished thinking. Let's be real. Projects rarely fail because of bad scheduling. They fail because leadership hesitation creates this massive debt. When a leader avoids drawing a clear boundary just to keep the peace or keep their options open, they're basically forcing the whole team into a cycle of hedging and rework. Now, we really need to systematically debunk a few common time management myths here. Myth number 1, a busy calendar means you're being super efficient. The truth, unmade decisions just multiply your coordination costs. Myth number 2, keeping options open protects your flexibility. Actually, no, open options just turn your entire week into a never-ending negotiation. And finally, the idea that hesitation avoids premature commitment? False. Hesitation just hides a fear of consequences, and it pushes those exact costs right onto the rest of the team. When leadership does this, those unmade decisions create what we call drift. This is basically activity that exists solely to postpone clarity. Now, this drift, it feels incredibly safe because, well, it looks like movement. You're answering emails, you're jumping on calls, you're keeping things moving, but it's really just the very expensive cost of avoiding a final choice. And guess who has to constantly update the schedule to accommodate this exhausting drift? Yep, your planner. Which brings us to Section 3, planning versus scheduling. The strategic art versus the mechanical act. There is a really critical distinction here that people confuse all the time. Scheduling is entirely output-focused. It's just a mechanical timeline of tasks, and it assumes absolutely perfect execution conditions, which we know literally never happens. Planning, on the flip side, is outcome-focused. It's a strategic art. It actively accounts for proactive risk management and builds in necessary time buffers. So while a schedule just logs a sequence of tasks, a true plan means anticipating the unexpected and strategically aligning your resources way before a crisis ever hits. The brilliant business expert Eliyahu M. Goldratt famously said, "Tell me how you measure me, and I will tell you how I will behave." This hits the nail on the head regarding a fundamental flaw in how we run these projects. If we only measure lag, like say a missed deadline or a schedule variance, we are literally incentivizing reactive behavior. It just becomes the corporate equivalent of playing whack-a-mole. We rush to fix whatever fire just popped up rather than actually preventing it in the first place. So, Section 4, foresight over hindsight. It's time we talk about moving from lagging to leading metrics. Okay, to stop reacting and start predicting, we have to entirely flip our metrics. Reactive management relies on lagging indicators, things like historical schedule variance or tracking actual cost versus the budget. When we do that, we treat the planner like a historian of failure. But proactive management, that uses leading indicators. It utilizes lean metrics like percent plan complete or PPC. It looks at participation in look-ahead planning, and it relies heavily on early root cause analysis. By focusing on these proactive leading indicators, planners stop logging history and finally start predicting system failures before they completely derail the timeline.
And when you actually implement a proactive, lean approach like this out in the real world, production times drastically improve, and that variance tightens right up. By establishing a culture of real responsibility and creating robust execution plans, you're literally stopping delays before they even start.
So here is the massive ultimate takeaway. The planner already saw the delay coming weeks ago. I mean it. While the site team or the developers were patting themselves on the back thinking they were perfectly fine and on track, the planner's leading metrics were already flashing bright red. The warning signs were right there in the data if only the rest of the team had actually known to look at them.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, Guardian of the Critical Path, the Early Warning Radar System.
Let's walk through how a delay actually snowballs. On day 1, the site team confidently says, yep, we're on track. By day 14, procurement flags a quote-unquote small delay. Day 21 rolls around, and design needs just one more revision. And then finally, on day 28, the planner runs the actual numbers and has to declare that the critical path is negative 15 days. That delay quietly snowballed through the ranks until the planner inevitably caught the final, compounded deficit. And when the dust settles, who gets asked what went wrong? The planner.
But if we actually empower them, a planner's true duties emerge. They're about seeing risks early, challenging those baked-in assumptions, aggressively protecting milestones, keeping cross-functional teams aligned, and giving projects a genuine chance to recover. Planners execute these duties to protect the whole operation. They act as that advanced radar system, buying the team precious time to course-correct long before a hypothetical delay becomes a brutal reality on site.
I want to hold up a mirror to leadership right now. We call this the mirror effect. Your hesitation as a leader might feel incredibly safe to you. It might feel strategic, like you're just keeping your options open. But what it actually does is force your team to carry the heavy burden of your unfinished thinking. And that directly causes the exact delays you end up blaming your planner for. Remember, clarity scales, but confusion just stalls everything.
This brings us to a quote that perfectly captures the massive paradigm shift we need to adopt. A planner's job isn't to explain the delay, it's to warn the team before the delay happens. Once we truly understand and internalize that, we transform our entire project culture. We move away from this toxic cycle of blame and build a system of proactive resilience.
So, I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on the next time your project hits a major roadblock. Are you actually managing decisions, or are you just managing delays? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this changes the way you look at your next big project plan.